Way back in 2005, Monolith Studios would release Fear, and it is still, to this day, one of the best shooters ever made. A lot of this comes down to its kinetic, kind of like John Woo inspired combat and the impressive AI on display. I am yet to play a game that has convinced me that the poor fucks on the other side of my shotgun were real thinking humans, but Fear 1 came pretty close. And, fun fact, I actually did review them a couple years back. I reviewed the original game and its two sequels. The videos are kind of dog shit by comparison, but I do stand by what I said in them. So where does Trepang2 fit into all this? Well, Trepang2 obviously looks at Fear for inspiration, and I love Fear, so I just had to give the game a go. So I played it from start to finish in one sitting, and here we are, for better and for worse. Let's talk about it. We play as the mysterious Subject 106, a guy with superpowers that gets rescued from an underground facility run by a mysterious organization called Horizon. Our rescuers, Task Force 27, are also just as mysterious, but they rescued us, so they're our friends now. The rest of the game is a series of missions that have us attacking and eliminating both Horizon research labs and their top brass. But, as you can probably guess, there's a few more twists, some intrigue, and plenty of blood to spill. And killing LED-clad soldiers hasn't looked this good since the mid-2000s. Trepang2 nails the frantic and gory combat, political thriller aesthetic, and strange fiction elements of Fear, if not Fear 2. But the main talking point of Trepang2 are the gunfights, and I mean look, it's easy to see why. It's loud, chaotic, and you feel powerful, like you're the one directing this orchestra of blood and lead. It's impressive, but it's also a lot. It's hard to read. We don't play games in the same way that we stare at artwork and admire the brushstrokes. We play games in motion. And in motion, Trepang2 is an overwhelming mess of effects that really make the experience suffer. It's actually difficult to keep track of where you and the enemies are within a room because the game is that hard to read. It actually makes the use of bullet time, or focus as the game calls it, a necessity to avoid getting lost in combat. And if that's the intention, yeah, look, it works. But maybe just dial down the effects a little bit. A lot of the game takes place in concrete monoliths and underground research bases. Enemies are mostly repeats of the same basic grunt, with some exceptions that we'll get to later. But that does make the game feel oppressive, which again links into the political thriller aesthetic. I kind of like the focus on like corporate spaces. It reminds me a lot of Finished One's almost devotion to office buildings and warehouses. It's oppressive. Like, it reminds me more of Stalker's Red Forest than it does Call of Duty, if that makes sense. Again though, a lot of my complaints do probably stem from the fact that this is a conscious decision to mimic Fear 1. It's also a budget and time frame thing. It's one set of building blocks for one type of location, but even then, the team does spice it up later with a few different locations, like a castle for example. But I'm being very negative. There is definitely positives to this. Some of Trepang2's levels are extremely well made. There's this excellent side mission that takes place in a remote construction site in the middle of nowhere. It's a quiet and eerie scene. You explore the building expecting something to pop out at you, but nah, nothing. The only sound is your footsteps and an odd electrical buzzing. Eventually you find it, a hatch beneath the house, leading to the same military bases that you've been to a few times already. But this one's different. It's empty. Abandoned. A spinning alarm light guides your path. A few bits of intel paints a picture of what happened here. Debris blocks your path. As you get further and further into the depths, the lighting turns more ominous, shades of red creep in, until you hit the final room. A mess of cables hang from the ceiling, almost tree-like in the combined pattern. A screen blasts the scene with blue light. And that's where I'll leave it for now. We'll come back to this one later when we discuss spoilers, as the payoff is worth talking about. Fundamentally, Trepang2 team does understand atmosphere and environmental storytelling. They just chose to ignore it for most of the main story missions, and I don't really know why. It was most likely a time or budget thing, but regardless. But seeing as I've already bored to death with my ramblings in art direction, let's change gears to gameplay and get all bloody again. Trepang2 is a fast-paced shooter with a variety of weapons and abilities to aid you in quickly and violently murdering entire small armies worth of PMCs in minutes. But contrary to pretty much every other review of the game already out there, this is not fair. This is not a slow, brooding tactical shooter where you peek around corners. This is an arena shooter wearing a bulletproof vest and calling itself an operator. It's tactical, not tactical. And this is seen in one of the biggest differences between this and Fear. Trepang2 is a two-weapon shooter where you can't aim down sights. Nearly everything else from the bullet time ability to being able to kick is the same deal as Fear. But these two decisions, only being able to carry two guns and no aim down sights, promotes a very different style of play. Plus, your focus or bullet time only regenerates when you kill enemies. Basically, you have to play aggressive in order to do the cool shit. It is a great decision and it perfectly reflects everything that I love about Trepang2. This is a game about being fast and about being selective. Sure, you could rush in with a shotgun running enemy to enemy, but once you remember you can cloak and sneak up on enemies to even the odds, the game gets massively more interesting. Sadly, the game does have a relatively small arsenal of only 8 weapons to choose from. We also only get one weapon of each archetype as well. One SMG, one assault rifle, one pistol, one marksman rifle, one shotgun, and just the 3 heavy weapons in the form of a grenade launcher, chain gun, and Trepang2's carbon copy of Fear's penetrator rifle. Which, by the way, still insanely fun to use. Plus, come on, going akimbo with any gun you want? That's sick. The benefit to the limited arsenal is that the team had way more time to balance each gun, which is why every gun feels perfect to use. With just the right amount of weight, the recoil is perfect, the sound design. Oh my god, the sound design is just delightful. Plus the grenades are impact grenades and detonate on contact with anything. That is sick. Enemy design is another highlight, if not a bit predictable. There's a decent spread of goons to fight, from low level rank and file members to spec ops squads that seem genuinely smarter in combat. With the different groups in game getting slight changes, like cultists have Molotov cocktails and they become suicide bombers. There's also a few heavy enemies sprinkled in as well to put pressure on the player. They somehow also aren't overused, which is always welcome. Trepang2 does a lot right with gunplay and combat. It is easily one of the smoothest feeling games I've played in a very long time. It has an excellent foundation for a game to be built off of. And that's the problem with Trepang2. It has some great ideas. The shooting is insanely good, the movement is great, the sound design is delicious. But everything else, it's an extremely mixed bag. And by this, I mainly mean the campaign's kind of flow and some of the creative choices that the team made that I honestly believe dragged this game down way harder than they have any right to. Remember that mission I highlighted earlier? The one of the basement bunker lab thing? Well, what happens when you do your objective and you turn off all the screens? You know, in this dark, brooding room where I feel uneasy because I don't know what's going to happen. Well, this bright orange light comes and kills you, and for some reason it makes you go deaf. Trepang2 suffers from what I like to call I thought the SCP wiki was really cool and totally should be used to create an atmosphere for my indie shooter game syndrome. A great deal of this game's side content and a decent chunk of its campaign heavily relies on strange fiction. Strange fiction's kind of like it's your Lovecraft mixed in with like your 50s, 60s sci-fi. It's aliens, it's ghosts, it's goblins, it's ghouls. But Trepang2 suffers from kind of like the memality of it all. But it's mainly about like elder gods sleeping below the ocean. That's the Lovecraft influence. The back rooms. Which, yeah, look, The introduction cutscene does allude to that. There is something going on. The world isn't right, you know? I mean, you are seemingly getting suggestive imagery mind controlled or something, and a secret ninja assassin saves you from it. This game isn't trying to be grounded in reality. I just personally think that shoving the back rooms randomly into a mission where the atmosphere is genuinely making me uneasy is just objectively a bad move. Frankly, it feels cheap. I let out an audible groan when I realised what I was looking at. And mind you, this is after an hour or two of missions that just felt off, almost out of sync with the rest of the game. It's just that a lot of the horror stuff doesn't land, which kind of sucks because some of the best parts of Trepang2, some of the more inventive parts of the game, are these horror sequences. But because they're so, kind of self-absorbed within themselves, and they're so, meme-centric. I know it's definitely a me thing, because some people fucking love this shit, they eat it up. But I thought it necessary to comment on it anyway. Trepang2, as a whole, can be divided into two halves. The first half is a really, really, really good, fast-paced, tactical-esque shooter. It's Fear 1, but it just got hit with adrenaline. It's perfect. Part 2 does this really strange switch up. After a few missions of assaulting strongholds in typical shooter fashion, we arrive at our first research base, and it's clear something's wrong. It's dark, it's atmospheric, and then our attackers get ambushed by something and they're ripped to shreds. It looks like a massive bat. So we chase it further down into the facility, into what I can only assume is its nest, and then well, to put it simply and bluntly, the game becomes Doom 2016. I mean, the music, the arena combat where you run around in circles kind of the enemy. I don't think it really matters that the enemies look awful with these massive cloudy vapors pouring off their bodies. It's a weird switch up. It comes out of nowhere, but the worst part is, it works. I perked up on my seat and went, oh, okay. Because I think, and this might be something that I lose with a lot of people with, I think this is what the game needed. It needed something like this to put the player on the back foot. You may notice I was never really in control or combat this entire encounter. I was always reloading or trying to get to safety, and it was great. It was exactly what the game needed because it separates it from its own identity. This game, Trepang2, was advertised by YouTubers, by the media, as a Fear sequel, as a Fear spiritual successor, but it was never that. Trepang2 is a Doom 2016 tactical shooter, and that's why the second half of the game needed its own section in the video marked with spoilers. Because if I told you from the get-go that this is what the game does, you wouldn't have cared. You would have been like, oh, that's weird. But what I love so much about the second half of the game is it's like the level and gameplay designers decided to actually talk about work at lunch. All of a sudden, things change massively for the somewhat better. The game decides to open up into bigger, more expansive combat arenas, much more similar to 2016's Doom, and then they mix and match the two styles almost perfectly for the rest of the runtime. It's honestly impressive, and it is exactly what the gameplay needed to be elevated once again, and most importantly, it keeps the game from going stale. You are always thinking about what they're going to do next, because let's be honest, I didn't expect the backroom to show up, and maybe it's not necessarily the best thing they could have done, but it's a talking point, right? It's something different in a game that up to that point was just concrete hallways. Talking about talking points, the narrative. Now look, it's hardly important really. People are going to play this game because the shooting is flashy. But Trepang2 actually has a decently okay story. I won't say that it's amazing or particularly thought-provoking, but it's enjoyable. So we play as Subject 106, a Special Forces operative, I think, with mysterious powers of invincibility, super strength, bullet time, and just being plain old better than everyone else. When the game starts, we're actually being held hostage by the Horizon Corporation, a company that basically controls the world's economy and has a massive army, and is seemingly subjecting us to mind control via video before we get rescued by an unknown third party. That is an incredibly strong start. There's some questions, right? Who are we? Why does Horizon do this? Who's this third party? Why do we have powers? Etc, etc. And all of this does get answered over the course of the game. After we fight our way out of the vaguely Fear 1-esque base, we get helicoptered over to the mysterious third party, who tells us that we used to work with them, but Horizon had us locked up for a very long time. This is Task Force 27, and they're our friends. We also learn what we'll be doing for the rest of the game, which will be exposing a multi-trillion-dollar company by entering multiple black sites around the world and getting evidence on illegal human experiments, or Horizon trying to harness the power of supernatural entities. It's a bit of both, really. So this is the framework the game uses. We pick our loadout back at home base and then go into a black site or Horizon location, get evidence, more often than not killing everyone inside then extracting. Our first mission after being rescued is actually to go to Alberta, Canada to investigate why one of our operatives has gone radio silent. They're at a Horizon end-of-life care facility, and well, we lock and load, kill a few hundred people, and experience some really, really well done environmental storytelling. Come on, they have a monument to people who died, not of old age, but from military conflicts, it seems. What is going on in Trepang2 2 world? It had to be pretty bad because this is a lot of people. A lot, and most of them pretty young too. And the fact we're shooting up a war memorial isn't lost to me either. But it does open up a new question. Are Horizon the good guys, or maybe just victims of some war? And also, where's this elevator taking us? Well, apparently the bulk of this end-of-life care facility is underground, and this is just a research facility, isn't it? A research facility that's making weird glowy zombie things and a massive vampire bat, which you kill twice. The other bases are pretty similar. They look normal on the outside, but are revealed to have some big, dark, terrible secret in the basement that we kill with bullets or by flicking a lever. It's honestly not that noteworthy. There is a mission where you take down a psychic crystal. It's also the same mission with the backrooms bit, so it's extremely all over the place. But I like the crystal fight. It stands out as it's more of a puzzle than anything else. The biggest thing that Trepang2 does narrative-wise is that they attempt to introduce a twist. Scattered throughout most of the levels are these drones. They're glorified text logs that being sent to you by a third party. The drones all hint at how we have to break the cycle. The cycle of what, though? Well, we do eventually learn, thanks to a few missions taking place in a massive cult castle, that we are not the first super soldier hired or in fact made by Task Force 21. We're the 106th super soldier, with each being a drastic or slight upgrade over the previous. That ninja guy from the start, that was 105. The leader of the cult, he's 91, and even he's telling you to break the cycle. Which, long story short, Horizon and Task Force 21 are both the bad guys here. Both are trying to control the world through different means, but the catch is, Anton, the CEO and leader of Horizon, is actually number 78. But who's making all these super soldiers? The Syndicate is. Task Force 21 is merely the armed forces of the Syndicate, a sort of global Illuminati ripoff. They make these soldiers, brainwash them to complete a singular goal, and then send in other soldiers to kill them when their task is finished. Anton, however, went rogue, and our job as 106 is to kill him, basically. After we eliminate Anton, the task force turns against us. We end up breaking out, we kill our successor, and then we nuke the facility. Ultimately, a lot of the finer details are lost here, either only viewable in text logs or simply just not mentioned in any capacity. Regardless, the story is secondary to the gameplay here, and honestly just functions as a way for the devs to put in some decently well done strange fiction moments, even if some don't really make a lot of sense. The world building is solid, however. There's enough environmental storytelling and just blatant text logs that make out that this world is on its last legs, whether it's because of war, climate change, or strange creatures breaking through the fabric of reality. It's clear that Horizon's research is important, especially since their last project is digital immortality. Something must be wrong in the world for them to be actively sacrificing lives just to get this to a workable level. Narrative doesn't have to be well-written characters who cry on screen. It can also just be text logs and some writing on the wall. And Trepang2 does that really well. Maybe even better than Fear. So, as a whole, what do I actually think about Trepang2? It's a good game. It really is. Sure, the visuals can be a little messy, hard to read, and honestly bland, but that doesn't matter as there's equal examples of intentional and sometimes honestly stunning art direction. The gunplay is extremely fun. It's different from Fear, but let's be honest, this is an arena shooter. I slid around way more and played it fast and loose, not slow and tactical. It's rare for us to get a game like Trepang2. It is as indie as it gets, but it's a first-person shooter that could have easily been at home during the 7th generation alongside of all the AA, low to mid-budget games at the time. This is a studio to keep your eyes on. I'm pretty sure they've got great things coming. And that was Trepang2. Next time we check out something absolutely different. See you next time.